of Ready for Pre-K. My name is Drew, and I'm the manager of Birth Deprived Programming here at DC Public Schools. I'm so thrilled to be here with you this evening for tonight's session on the importance of early intervention with our friends from early stages. So before we get started, there are a few housekeeping items that I want to go over for the good of the group. We're using Zoom to host tonight's session. Throughout the session, we invite you to enter your questions and comments into the chat box. You're also welcome to unmute and engage and ask questions if you feel comfortable. We love hearing your voices. This session will be recorded and posted on the DCPS YouTube page, so please double check your camera settings if you would not like to be on camera this evening. And so we are offering simultaneous interpretation in Spanish. So I'm going to pause for just a moment so that anyone who would like to use this interpretation function can do so at this time. All right, and with that, we like to start all of our Ready for Pre-K sessions off with some general community agreements for our time together. We're committed to making sure that this is a forum where everyone feels welcome and safe and respected. So we ask that during tonight's session, you be kind, be patient, and be open. And with that, I'll turn it over to tonight's presenter, Ms. Karen Wright from Early Stages. Karen, thank you so much for joining us tonight. And I will turn it over to you to share your slides and tell us a little bit about yourself and tonight's session.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Drew. I am Karen Wright, and I am a child find coordinator with Early Stages, which is also part of the District of Columbia Public Schools. And I'm excited to be here tonight to talk about the importance of early intervention and an overview of early stages. I'm going to share my screen and make sure I do the sound here. Okay, so and there we go. Can everyone see my screen? All right.
Looks
fantastic. All right. All right. So I can't faces because now my slide. So I'm really hoping we're going to get some folks that feel comfortable, as Drew said, to unmute yourself. We have a small group so far. I think we only have 2 people, Drew, right now.
Yes. So please feel free to unmute and ask any questions we have throughout the session.
Absolutely. Fantastic. Okay. We're going to move on. Okay. We're going to be answering these following questions. If I have a concern, why should I refer? And also, okay, I'll make a referral. Where do I start? And we're also going to talk about the process of moving from an IFSP to an IEP. Okay. All right. Let's move on. It is easier to build strong children than to repair broken men. This is one of the reasons why we should refer now. This is a Frederick Douglass quote, and I absolutely love this quote. And this is absolutely part of the reason, one of the reasons, or the reason we should refer. Absolutely. Okay, by the numbers. I'm going to get you guys involved pretty quickly here. What percentage of our brain do you think is developed by the time we are 5 years of age? Do you think it's 20, 50, 75, 15%, 100%, 90%? You can write in the chat or unmute and tell me what you think.
20.
Oh, 20, okay. Anyone else?
Yep, I see a 30% in the chat.
Okay, all right, all right. All right, we're gonna move on and we're gonna do a drum roll. Here we go. It is 85 to 90% of the brain is developed by the time we are 5 years of age. And why do you think there's that much development? What's happening between the age of birth and 5? Can you just shout out some things or write them in the chat? What's happening? What are we learning? How are we developing between birth to 5? Anybody? Few things. I'll start us out. Talking, right? Anything else?
Yeah, somebody entered language skills, also
Yeah.
motor skills, learning to walk.
Yes. Woo! Absolutely. Absolutely. Anyone else want to guess any things we're learning between birth and 5? Walking, talking, basic things. How about adaptive things? Potty train, how to use the bathroom, right? How about to feed ourselves? So there's a lot of
Potty
things.
training's a big one.
Yes, right? Absolutely. So there's a lot of things we're learning. That's why there's that much development between birth and 5 years of age. Okay. And 5 years sets the stage for lifelong development of the brain growth in that time period, sets the stage. Okay. It's more rapid during that stage than any other time because of all those things we're learning, right? Okay, we're going to move on. All right. 700 per second. 700 new connections form every second during the first 3 years of life. These connections are the brain wiring itself for learning, for development, and that's called synapses. And synapses the brain operates on a use it or lose it principle. Okay, as you see here in this slide, at birth, there's a few connections there. Then between birth and 6 years old, right? Learning to walk, talk, feed ourselves, all of those things, right? Then we have a lot of connections there. Then they prune, which we know like a rose bush, when we prune it back, right? It grows more. So that is that connection synopsis that happens in the brain. All right, 6 to 7 risk factors. Exposure to 6 through 7 risk factors could mean, that's very important, that's why it's in red, could mean a likelihood of 90 to 100% chance of having a delay in cognitive, language, or emotional development. Okay, this is 6 through 7. You have to have a lot of those risk factors. If you have a few, there may not be any delays at all. But if you have 6 or 7, it's a pretty high likelihood of having that delay. A couple of these factors are severe maternal depression and genetic chromosomal abnormalities. Okay, what do you think may be some of these other additional risk factors? Can anybody name any other risk factors that you think it could be?
Trauma.
Yes, very good. Absolutely. Anyone else?
Um, sorry, I have another one.
Go ahead.
Witnessing violence.
I love that.
Um,
Absolutely.
um,
Absolutely. Any more?
uh, when there's like a home with someone in incarceration.
Yep, those
Um,
type. Absolutely. Very
um,
good.
the
Which makes
ASIC.
that an unstable home, right?
Yeah.
Very
Uh,
good. Excellent.
Oh,
Okay.
great. Somebody also added nutrition. Yeah,
Oh,
that physical health as well.
absolutely. You guys are hitting them. They're all on this list here. Trauma, abuse, neglect, poverty, low parental education, poor nutrition's on the right side there. Lack of care, caregiver mental illness. All of these are risk factors, right? That could cause that 90 to 100% likelihood of having a developmental delay in cognitive, language, or emotional delay. All right, stress. All right, normal stress is good. We all have a certain amount of stress, and normal stress is good. But as you can see here, once we get into chronic stress, which is over a long period of time, the constant stress over a long period can cause that. And as you look at this picture here, you see the one picture, a lot of those synapses connections are there. But in the picture with the chronic stress, you see less synopsis, and you also see that hole, that little white hole there. I've had many teachers or child development center teachers or directors say there seems to be a disconnect. And that's exactly what it is. It's a disconnect due to that chronic stress. All right, we're gonna listen to
in
Can
this
you
still
hear
face
that?
experiment
Can you guys hear the video?
Yep, we can hear it.
Oh, great. I put the sound on, wanted to make sure. Okay, here we go.
what the mother did was she sits down and she's playing with her baby who's about a year of age.
I need my good girl. Oh.
And she gives a greeting to the baby gives a greeting back to her.
Yeah.
This baby starts pointing at different places in the world, and the mother's trying to engage her and play with her. They're working to coordinate their emotions and their intentions, what they want to do in the world. And that's really what the baby is used to. And then we ask the mother to not respond to the baby. The baby very quickly picks up on this, and then she uses all of her abilities to try and get the mother back. She smiles at the mother. She points because she's used to the mother looking where she points. The baby puts both hands up in front of her and says, "What's happening here?" She makes that screechy sound at the mother, like, "Come on, why aren't we doing this?" Even in this 2 minutes, when they don't get the normal reaction, they react with negative emotions, they turn away, they feel the stress of it, they actually may lose control of their posture because of the stress that they're experiencing.
Okay. I'm here. And what are you doing? Oh, yes. Oh, what a big girl.
Okay, so any comments on the video? It's really interesting, right? In such a short amount of time, you see the stress and how the baby is reacting to the still face of the mother in just that small amount of time. So that's where we go back to that video where we see the chronic stress over a long period of time and how it can affect the development and the brain architecture during that long and stressful situations. Okay, where do I start? All right, here we go. Making a referral, strong start. They are birth to 2 years, 10 months, and early stages. We are 2 years, 8 months to 5 years, 10 months. And we will move on and talk about Strong Start is the Office of State Superintendent of Education, the DC Early Intervention Program. Identification, evaluation, and recommendation for services available to all residents of DC, and services are free of charge. As well as early stages, we are the District of Columbia Public Schools, and children 2 to 8, 2 years, 8 months begin our process. They would not start school or go into school until they're 3. They start our process early because it does take a few months to get through our process. And then we're all the way to 5 years, 10 months. They get into kindergarten, and then a little after kindergarten, then all of it, once they're in the DCPS schools, all of the services are rendered there and delivered there. Free and inclusive to all residents of the District of Columbia, as well for early stages. If a child is in a child development center here in DC, they are also eligible to go through our process, and if they are attending a DC child development center. Okay, 2 locations for early stages. 1125 New Jersey Avenue, which is the Walker Jones Education Campus, And we've been there since 2009, and we are in our new location. Woohoo, go early stages, new location. Ron Brown High School. We opened in February of this year. So we just opened. We've only been there a month. So we're pretty excited about our new location. All right. What does the early stages process look like? So we start with referring, and your role is to make that referral. All right, making a referral for early stages. These are the different ways you can make a referral: fax, online, email, mail, phone, or in person. And screen, your role is to complete the ASQ. And as a parent, I would absolutely complete the ASQ with you. We do that through early stages, or through some child development centers, parents are given the ASQ form to fill out on their own. However, when I do the ASQ with a parent, I am doing it with the parent, and we go through the questionnaire together. And we can do it over the phone. Most of mine are done over the phone, or it can be also done in person. But the Ages and Stages questionnaire is a developmental questionnaire. It covers 5 domains: communication, gross motor, fine motor, personal, social, and problem solving. Children draw, they move about, they jump, they do a lot in this screening so that we can see where they are developmentally. And here's a little sample of an ASQ. This is the gross motor ASQ. You can see the questions here. Second one, does your child stand on one foot for about 1 second without holding on to anything? Does your child jump forward at least 6 inches with both feet leaving the ground at the same time? This is a 42-month questionnaire, the gross motor section. Okay. Evaluation. Your role is to provide consent and attend the evaluations. Okay, written parental consent must be gained before evaluations can be conducted. Consent can only be given after procedural safeguards have been provided, and we will go over the procedural safeguards during this training. That is, procedural safeguards are your rights as a parent in the special education process. Okay, evaluation day, family care intake process. When you come in on an evaluation day, our family care coordinators that we have will review your rights again. Myself as a child find coordinator, I do provide my parents with their rights, which are those procedural safeguards, after we have completed the ASQ. And before, I talk about the rights even before, but then I send a copy to you right after that. But they will review them again with you when you come in for that evaluation day. They'll gather information from you. A hearing and vision screening is done at early stages if the child has not had one prior. We will do that hearing and vision as well. And the evaluation, you will be able to watch that evaluation through a double-sided window. Your child will be in the room with the evaluators. Okay. All right, evaluation types. Psychological evaluation is behavior, everyday life skills. Speech evaluation, of course, it's fluency. Does your child stutter? Articulation, can you understand what your child is saying when they speak? And comprehension, does your child understand what you are saying to them? Physical therapy is the gross motor, crawling, rolling, jumping. Occupational therapy is fine motor, pointing, picking up things, using utensil and sensory processing. And education is a little bit of everything. Every child that comes through early stages will get an educational evaluation. And we do that so that we don't miss anything. So every child gets that it gets that educational evaluation. Determine eligibility. Your role here is to attend the meeting and agree or disagree with the results of the evaluations that have been done. So, determining eligibility. the main important parts with this, does the child have an IDEA defined disability? And does that disability impact the child's education, their ability to learn? If both of these questions are not yet, the child is not found eligible for services, special education services. You have to have both of those questions have to be yes, okay? If it is yes, they are eligible and they will receive the IEP that's developed by early stages. And we'll talk more about the IEP as well. If no, the child is not eligible for education or special education services. All right, here are the disability categories under IDEA. IDEA stands for Individual Disability Educational Act. Okay, that's IDEA. And these are the categories here. Okay, we'll move on. All right, what is an IEP? Can anybody tell me what IEP stands for?
Individualized education plan.
Yes, woo, fantastic, perfect. IEP stands for Individualized Educational Program or Plan. It's fine. We use those words interchangeably. An IEP is a written plan for a child's educational services that is developed, reviewed, and revised in accordance to IDEA law. All right. Now we're going to go back a little bit. What is an IFSP? Anybody know what that stands for?
Individualized family support plan.
That was pretty good. Close. That was pretty close. It's service. Very good, though. Very good. Very close. Individualized family service plan. A written document that outlines the early intervention services that a child will receive when he or she is found eligible for early childhood special education services. It also describes when and where and how the services will be delivered. Remember, we talked about Strong Start and we talked about early stages. Strong Start is part of the Office of the State Superintendent of Education, and Strong Start works with children from birth to 2 years, 10 months. Okay, so IFSPs are developed by Strong Start because the children are from birth to 2 years, 10 months. So they need the family service plan. Okay, so and then IEP is the written plan that early stages will create when a child is found eligible for services. And early stages, remember, we're 2 years, 8 months up to 5 years, 10 months. And these IEPs are implemented in the DCPS school. Okay. All right. So now let's talk about transitioning from Strong Start to early stages. Okay. At about 2 years, 7 months. Okay. So think about it. Strong Start, they go from birth to 2 years, 10 months. We're 2 years, 8 months up to 5 years, 10 months. So at 2 years, 7 months, Strong Start and early stages will hold what's called a transition meeting. Okay. If you agree to the process with the early stages, you will sign consent for evaluations. Now, what happens in that transition meeting, we talk about, in the transition meeting, there's different types of transition meetings. It depends on where the child is in the Strong Start process. Because sometimes the child might not start Strong Start until they're 2 years, 7 months, 2 years, 8 months, 2 years, 10 months, which would mean they would, soon as they come into Strong Start, they would automatically move into the transition phase of their process with Strong Start. Okay, so sometimes we're holding a Strong Start meeting with a parent that really hasn't even had any services through Strong Start yet, and sometimes they've been in Strong Start for a year, or 8 months, 10 months. It just depends. So this transition meeting has to happen because before there can be no break by law, there can be no breaks in services for children. So from strong start to early stages, it has to be a continuous services, no break. So this transition meeting determines if a child is eligible to move forward into early stages in order for them to continue their services once they're 3 years old. But that, so I'm getting ahead of myself. So let's just, I'll read through the slide. Within 60 days of consent of evaluation, early stages will schedule and complete 2 different appointments with you. An appointment to observe and evaluate your child, and then the eligibility meeting to discuss if your child qualifies for those services. And if they qualify and are eligible, they'll get that IEP like we said. However, the issue with this is a little different with transitioning from an IEP from an IFSP to come into an IEP rather than a parent that's just coming straight for the IEP. If a child is getting services through Strong Start already, and then they come through early stages and are not found eligible, then they cannot, the services will not continue by the time they're 3 years old. But by law, the services are not supposed to have a break if they're found eligible through early stages. So that's the key part, if they're found eligible. Okay. All right, here we go. Children receiving services from Strong Start may not be eligible. Like I said, they may not be eligible for services through the District of Columbia Public Schools. And if they are not, then they will not be able to move forward into the IEP with early stages. However, they can, I'm going to talk about that in a moment. They can extend their option through Strong Start up until they get start school. So we'll talk about that as we go to the next slide. Special education services will be offered if your child is eligible. Kind of went through all of this. I think I talked about all this. Okay. Now.
Oh, Karen?
Sure.
I see that one participant has their hand up.
Oh,
would you like
great.
to go ahead and unmute and ask your question or enter it in the
Yes.
chat?
Great.
Hi. So I just had a question. So what if like say from the Strong Start to the early stages, what happens if they don't do that transition and the child ends up like having a break with that, and like say maybe the person that was handling their case, if they didn't do that, and
Yeah.
what happens with that?
I understand exactly what you're saying. That's actually against the law. So that should never happen. And if it does happen, then we're going to talk about your rights as well. And one of your rights is to file a complaint, because actually that should not happen. The transition is required because by law, IDEA mandates that a child's services are not broken. So that is by law. So if it does not happen, you have the right to file a complaint with OSSI. And we'll talk about that as we get into.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll talk about that as we get into the procedural safeguards. But that's a very good question, because that should not ever happen. That transition meeting has to happen. And if, sometimes, it could be slow, but that's why it's very important that these transition meetings are talked about and begin at 2 years, 6 months, 2 years, 5 months, 2 years, 7 months at the latest. We should be already, Strong Start should be communicating with early stages, anywhere from 2 years, 6 months, 2 years, 5 months, 2 years, 7 months at the latest to hold this transition meeting. And I do transition meetings sometimes, even though that's not my job, but we help out our transition coordinators sometimes because they're so bogged down. So we will take those transition meetings. So that's why I know so much about this, because I actually do the transition meetings as well. And it's absolutely by law. So that's a great question. Very good question. So moving on here to talk about if your child is eligible for services, DCPS can provide those services free of charge, starting on your child's 3rd birthday. And the services will be provided in the public school, not the daycare or the childcare or the home. That's the major difference between Part C, which is early intervention, which is Strong Start early intervention, and the DCPS, which is early stages, Part C program, Part B program. Part C is Strong Start, Part B is DCPS. But our services are rendered in the DCPS school only. Okay, so there's times when parents are not ready. Like I said, I do transition meetings. There's times when parents may not be ready for their child to go to school. We want them to be ready. That's why we're doing these trainings and doing these parent workshops to talk about the District of Columbia Public Schools services and being ready for pre-K and talking about those programs. They're great programs. I've had plenty parents move out of DC and move back into DC because the services through District of Columbia Public Schools are top notch. They really, really are. And I'm not just saying it because I work there, but also my grandson has had services through the District of Columbia Public Schools. He went to Maury and it was a great experience there. So I can speak very, very candidly about the services there. And if your child is eligible to go through this process, you can accept that IEP from early stages and have your child begin receiving the services through that IEP at the DCPS school, or you can choose to keep your early intervention services through that IFSP, and your child can continue to receive those services up to their first day of school after their 4th birthday, okay? So this is important. I always it's a little confusing, and I'm not, I feel the same way, but it's important to know, because if you choose to take the extended option, that's what that's called through Strong Start, the extended option, your child can continue to get services. An example here is if your child's 4th birthday is November 3rd, then your child can keep his IFSP services all the way to the beginning of the next school year when he's almost 5. So the extended option is very important because some parents just aren't ready. There's different reasons, and that is your right. So it's important to understand that. That's why I made sure I put this on this slide. So you can absolutely take a picture of this and keep it, or I can also send out this in a PDF form. And once, this is another important step here as far as this process from IFSP to IEP. If you choose Part B, which is early stages, the District of Columbia Public Schools, you cannot revert back to an IFSP. But if you choose the extended option at any point that you're ready for your child to go into DCPS, you can do that. So you can go from IFSP to IEP anytime you're ready, but you cannot revert from DCPS back to Strong Start. Okay? All right, any more questions about this? And the very important bold highlighted down here is your child must be eligible for special education through early stages evaluations in order to continue with Strong Start's extended option. And their case must be open with Strong Start. And that's important, that case must be open with Strong Start. So I think, you know, even going back to the question, it's important that you make sure that you explain to the Strong Start, you know, service coordinator that you do not want your child's case closed as you're going through this transition. Keep that case open so that you can decide whether you want the extended option or not. Okay? Any questions about this? All righty. We're going to move on. Implementing services. Your role is to enroll your child at that site, at that school for services, okay? If this is once you've gotten that IEP and you decide, okay, I want to go to DCPS, woohoo, yay. I'm going to get the IEP and I want my child to go to DCPS. Okay. Implementation of services is in the least restrictive environment for services. And we're going to talk about what that means. LRE, least restrictive environment defined, ensures that children with disabilities are educated with their non-disabled peers in a general education classroom as much as possible, and shows preference for children with disabilities to attend their neighborhood school unless the school does not have an educational program that can meet the child's special needs. If they don't have a pre-K-3 program, we've had some parents that really want their child in their neighborhood school, however, they don't have pre-K-3, so they cannot attend there, or they don't have a seat available. So there's times when early stages may, when they're choosing that location of services for those services to be implemented, there is no seat available in that neighborhood school, so then they will go to the next school. You know, we try to keep it as close as possible, but that's very hard when you're looking at all these factors. It's not easy. But we are looking at the neighborhood school first as the option for implementation of services, okay? Services are provided without charge to parent or guardian under public supervision and direction and with public funds. Must meet the standards of the State Education Agency, OSSI. This is talking about LRE, least restrictive environment, okay? Services are designed to meet the individual needs of the child so that the child can make educational progress. And services are provided in conformity with a student's individualized education program, that IEP. The services are provided conforming to that IEP. Any questions on the LRE? Least restrictive environment. Okay, great. All right, now follow up. This is the IEP has been written, it's been determined, and you're talking now as you're in that eligibility meeting, okay? And they're showing you where they're going over the IEP and they're talking about the IEP. This is where you come in. And this is one of my most important slides. I really try to nail this down to parents, and it's very important, okay? The IEP, we talked about the IEP, is that written plan that is reviewed, revised in accordance to IDEA, right? All right, IEP review and revision at least once a year. That's the federal IDEA law requirement. At least once a year, this IEP has to be reviewed. But in the middle, that middle bubble there is very important. It says, or more frequently at the request of the parent. So I'm going to ask you guys a question. What do you think? Do you think that IEP should be reviewed once a year? What's your thoughts? And why? If more, maybe twice a year, maybe 3 times a year. So do you think once a year? If once a year, why? And if more, why? Anybody?
Definitely seems like with the amount of development that's happening in those first 5 years that we'd want to review it more often.
Yay! Woo! Absolutely. I always say to parents, you know, an IEP where it has written criteria that we want to meet. We want the child to be able to, if they have a speech impediment, okay, we want them to be able to make the M, the P, the S sound. So we put a date, though that IEP has from this date to that date. That's that year. But guess what? We would like to see, right? We would like to know, maybe he's reached that criteria in the 4 months of that year. Maybe in 4 months, he might have reached it, or she might have reached it. So if she's reached it, we would like to move on to something else, right? So absolutely, I usually say to parents, at least, 2, 3 times, I mean, 2 the least, 3, maybe 3, but you definitely don't want to wait the whole year. And then, you've either found out the child has reached that criteria way before, or maybe they're not reaching it and you want to know why. So you want to review that a little more. Now, evaluations, every 3 years for evaluations, unless there is a new concern that happens with the child, and you have a new concern that was not addressed in those initial evaluations, then you wouldn't want to do evaluations that often. But if there's a new concern, then absolutely you may need to have another evaluation done. All right, great. All right, here we are. We finally made it to the procedural safeguards. All right, here are your rights, some of them. You have the right to be involved in every meeting. There should be no meeting held regarding your child without you being there. Very important. Your approval of service is voluntary and may be taken back at any time. I never knew this when I had my daughter that had some developmental issues. My nephew, my sister's son went through special education, never knew it was voluntary. It's voluntary, may be taken back at any time. You have the right to request a copy of your child's school's records. You can get a copy of their records. If you disagree with, this is the part that the young lady was asking the question. If you disagree with evaluations, your child's eligibility, site location, FAPE. FAPE is free and appropriate public education. Every child has the right to FAPE. If you disagree, you have the right to request a mediation with the school, file a complaint with OSSI, and file a due process complaint, okay? And if you don't agree with evaluations, in this section here, if you disagree with evaluations, you may request an independent evaluation, educational evaluation, be done at no cost to you. The District of Columbia has to pay for that. So if you come through early stages and they say that your child is not eligible, but you feel that they're eligible, you have the right to request an outside independent evaluation be done. Okay? Any questions on your rights? Okay. All right. Woo, we made it. It's 6:18 and we are done. This is all my contact information. If you want to reach out to me, I love to talk to you. I'm always available. Give me a call, email, text. This is my work cell, so you can text me on this. And if you have any questions about anything we've talked about so far, I'm here to answer any questions you have or about anything.
Karen, thank you so much. And for any of the participants who are on, please feel free. We've got a couple of minutes to unmute any, ask any follow-up questions that you might have. I'm going to share my screen quickly so that I can put up
I'm going to come out then.
a link to our survey.
I will stop sharing.
All right. Let's see. Are you all able to see that okay? All right, so as we talked about, there's the contact information up here for Strong Start, for early stages. And then also remember, you can always reach out to your child's pediatrician with concerns as well. And as we wrap up this evening, I wanted to encourage everyone to take a moment to fill out our attendee survey for a chance to win a bundle of children's books. So just by taking this very quick survey, we will mail a bundle of children's books to your home. We appreciate your feedback and your time this evening. So if there aren't any additional questions for Karen this evening, please feel free to reach out. I know that sometimes after a session, you might think, oh, I wish I had asked that, or at a later time. And we'll also include this information in our next Ready for Pre-K newsletter. And with that, have a great night, everyone.